I response on the
Really old stuff to shred it.
yoga.
Okay,
Yeah,
you wanna meet next week, you think? Okay, yeah,
we can do it. You can be at Zoom or Teams. Doesn't have to be-
We're working
on Okay.
But yeah,
I'm thinking. Hi Aisha, hi Penny,
Hi.
you here, can you hear me?
Yep.
You good?
should have brought your packet tonight. I forgot it. It's in the office though. I'm gonna bring it for tomorrow.
She said, well, it's gotta be done. And I said, I know. And I said, it's been. They've been following up on that forever. Just. I used up, I think they're looking for the part of the. What's hers? I'm sorry. Oh, it is? All right, I want to open it up, no time now. Okay, thank you.
So we do it. Sound the online. Yeah. Yeah.
Grossman? Oh. Seen her in a long time, I just see her around town, but I haven't seen her forever. No, I haven't either. Many boys know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have a lot of people who are online. On Zoom tonight. And I think at this moment, most of them are on by the looks of it. The only one that, oh, no, I was gonna say Leanne, but Leanne's not. Today was Leanne's birthday, so, and while I'm talking about Leanne, she just had she hasn't been coming to the meeting, she hasn't been doing well. But they just did a pacemaker, and so she's hoping that things will improve. Yeah,
She didn't know who I was.
yeah. Okay. Tim, I know you've got the are you pressed for time?
Not today.
Okay. Because Stefan asked if he could go first in his report, so. I'm gonna move it around a smidge.
Thank you. So we have good news, we have hired 3 new drivers, so
That's wonderful.
yes, able to rank up the operations now. We are still delivering meals, but now we'll be able to add some shopping. That's what people want. We're going to reach shopping. We are returning to shopping at Trader Joe's, CVS, pharmacies, and banks. So it's going to be type of shuttle. And I will adapt to demand this time. Before we had a shuttle with a fixed route. And with the experience, we realized that most of the people wanted to go to Trader Joe's and CBS, railroad banks. We can still reroute need be, but we will adapt to demand, and I think it's the best. We are working with Massillon Center to update their transportation software. So I got what's called a beta tester, so I'm testing the software before it's released in the wild. And I send them a 15-page report on the good, the bad, and the ugly, but the progress has been made. The new drivers, will present them to you next time. But we also have one that is going to retire. Mike Beard is retiring. That still leaves us with enough people to carry the operations, excuse me. And the bad news is that, and I would like your opinion on that. As you can see, there is one van now that is parked in front of the center. And one that is parked over there in the corner. And it appears that Ford had the great idea of making some electrical wires in the van based on rice and soy.
Animals like it. Good rice, good animal food.
Exactly. So we had $1,600 of damages on the small vehicle.
Oh, my goodness.
And I found bones on the engine of the big ones. The bones were in such a size that I doubt that it's a mice. It's size up. So the problem is that they chew through the garbage. They chew through the covers, and we will have at one point you've got metal covers or something else. Plastic doesn't touch them. And at $1,600 per damage. And I hope that they're not going to chew for the ABS or the
Yeah.
stops or the brakes or.
I thought we had decided on trying to do metal covers for those, a while back, we talked about it. We
But
were
it's
having,
DPW,
oh,
so we'll have to see with that, if he can put metal covers. The problem was, if I understand correctly, don't quote me on that. They were concerned about the noise that could make when closing the lid.
well,
I believe that the noise compared to the train.
yeah, I mean, it's whoever's bothered, I know the train comes in all the time, the noise happens what, once or
Yeah.
twice a
It's
day?
not like
Once a
it's in the
day,
middle of
once
the
a
night.
day.
Exactly, and it's during the day and not at midnight.
Or we could slam the doors when the train is.
Well, that's true, when as it's coming through with the whistles blowing, we could run out and do the garbage. Yeah, I think it's important that we push to get metal doors, because when it starts affecting, our other things in the garbage cans.
Well, it starts costing a lot of money. too.
Yes, that's what I mean, yeah.
And I also don't want, for example, to have, excuse me, a rat chewing through, let's say, high pressure hoses for the brakes
Yeah.
or anything
Right.
like that. I have enough surprises with the vehicles like this without adding, some suspense to it.
Okay. So we can push. a little.
Thank you very much.
I have a question on the drivers and what's, has there been any, my concern is how early our last ride is. And, I thought I was kind of. In my mind, I thought it was due to the fact that we didn't have drivers and they were using the time that they are allotted. To deliver meals and stuff, and I think it's a shame that our last ride home, our last transportation is so early in the afternoon.
So yeah, we are moving it back.
Okay,
Okay, the drivers just finished the two first round of trainings. That were mandatory. There is still one mandatory training, which is the lift wheelchair lift.
Yeah.
procurement.
Yeah,
It cannot be done online, it has to be done in person. And, we have been moved from MARTAP, which is in Massachusetts, to Urban Talk. And they have less resources, and the first, I believe the first wheelchair training should be September, if available. Secondly, I was certified to train them. There was a glitch between RLS and Associate, MassDOT. My certification was 2 years, for a while became 1 year certification. Now it has been re-extended to 2 years. I can train them, I cannot certify them.
okay,
But we're extending the hours.
good.
It's also the fact that, for example, some of the clients that we used to have, that used to stay longer hours, do not stay longer hours. And some others, some clients are very, I'd say, regulars. Are aging, and they want to go home at 2 o'clock.
I guess I would really at least like to try it and see,
We're doing
and
it.
see what happens, because that's what some of the things that I hear, that we can't go to a program in the afternoon because the last, van leaves too early and that kind of stuff, so.
But also,
If it's not being used, then I can understand going back, but I would certainly like to see.
so for example, to give you,
Can I interrupt you 1 second? Could you check the sound? Penny just texted me that they can't hear.
Oh. That's the way it should be, right?
Yeah, that's what it should be. So we might have to.
Yeah.
loudly project.
Okay,
The microphone is in the owl, so,
all right,
yeah.
all right, so. She'll text me back if she still can't hear. We'll just speak louder.
to go back on your suggestion, absolutely, but you have one client that comes to see you and says, oh, I would like to stay longer hours. I'm fine with it. I have also a client that wants to return to lunch bunch. Lunch bunch was a program we had where we seniors to wrestling,
Yes,
and it stopped at the pandemic.
right.
As of now, I have one client that wants to restart lunch bunch. So is it worth it to take one driver, one client, go to
Well,
Norfolk?
that's not a bunch. That's- If they really want lunch, they could go across the street somewhere.
It would be cheaper for us basically to Uber him.
Right.
So the same with those clients that sometimes want to stay late for a program. I sometimes have to make a decision, because if I have to keep a driver for 2 or 3 hours on standby and a vehicle on standby. I hope to resolve that with the new program that the town is putting, the transportation. So that would be a little bit like. Then that would be perfect for that.
Right.
If you want to stay until 9 PM. Amen. Because this is one single ride and the driver is not dedicated to that person.
And we already went through that, ride on demand kind of thing, and we put a kibosh on that. You can't do it anymore. I just think, if we can try it and people do want to stay for happening. Great, if it doesn't work, then we just stop it again. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Not that, lunch bunch food. Maybe if you advertise it, that you're gonna start it up again.
we had
You
a
might get one
discussion
person.
at the Friends meeting, was it, about the lunch bunch? I thought something, maybe I had it with you.
I think you had it with me.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I got the 2 minutes.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's one person, I don't see the point,
No.
obviously, but, if we make inquiries as to whether people are interested in doing that again from the people that were doing it.
Yeah.
Then we'll think about it. Okay, thanks. Okay, Tim, Would you
I
like
think the
to
car-
move forward on, since you're first on the list?
Sure, I'm happy to, although if you want to do other monthly reports from folks, I'm happy to wait. Anyway.
Could Shine go?
Sure.
And then they can- Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Amy and Michelle on there, but
I'm on. It's Amy. Hello.
Please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So thank you for letting me go. So this month we had a few outreach events. We did 2 presentations at Needham Housing at the Seabeds in Linden and the Chambers location on May 3rd. Then we also gave a few Mass Health updates presentation. We gave one at the Waltham COA on May 2nd. We also gave one at the Brookline COA on May 23rd. We also did a presentation for Framingham Lifelong Learning Organization, which was virtual. That was on May 9th. And an update as well, all 5 of our billboards are up. The last one being up now, and that will be up in the end of the month, on June 30th, the end of the fiscal year. We also had our counselor in-person meeting on May 9th, and then we had our virtual meeting May 18th. And then we had Mass Health Unwinding trainings in order to prepare our counselors for any clients who are coming in to see Shine counselors with mass health issues. And we gave part 1 on May 16th, and we gave part 2 on May 31st. And there are 2 more parts of this training that we will be offering in June. We also attended the Aging and Disability Resource Consortium Zoom meeting on May 17th and attended our regional directors virtual meeting on May 30th to continue the discussion on the Mass Health Unwinding.
Okay, that sounds like you've been busy.
Yes, we've had a very busy month. We're definitely trying to do more in the community and outreach in hopes of gaining more clientele for Shine. So hopefully our efforts will go well.
Great, thank you.
Are you
very much.
hearing a lot about the Medicaid?
So it's kind of, we thought we would be seeing a lot more now, to be honest, but it definitely is seeming like it's starting to rev up.
Just to pipe in, hey, this week was the first week, so I do in Watertown
Yeah.
counseling. 3 out of my four people were Mass Health people who turned 65 during the pandemic. And that's the first people that are getting the reevaluation letter from Mass Health. So this week, first time I really saw it.
Yeah, I think just now we're starting to hear more counselors getting them now. So, you know, that's why we're definitely trying to do these Mass Health optional trainings for our counselors to get them as prepared as possible. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Amy.
much.
That's gonna be the biggest savings from Mass Health is the people who turned 65. Huh?
I'm way past that.
It's because the criteria for Mass Health over 65 looks at assets. It does not look at assets under 65. So there are many people on Mass Health that have purposely kept their income down to stay on Mass Health, even though they have assets.
Interesting, yeah. Anyway. So let's continue with aging services. Aisha, do you want to add anything? I see you.
I can. Can you hear me?
I
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So Stefan already said that about the new driver, but his name is Alan McDuffie. So if you see any of the new drivers, please say hi and welcome. Sometimes I feel like they feel a little estranged from just seeing the people that they pick up. And so I want them to feel part of our team. We are now booked straight through the new year with events, so that is good. Jen has finished the compass. We're trying to figure out how some people are already receiving it online. Because some are, some aren't, and we've already been taking registrations. She did a great job. It looks great. It gets better every time she does it. We are coming down a little hard on people not pre-registering and paying. Now that Karen's on board, she is emailing the rosters to instructors that have classes that they should be paying for which they should be paying. And today we had an uptick, which was great. People calling in to say, how do I register? We have some instructors that think that checks are going to town hall that are for us. So I'm not quite sure. In the past, I've received, emails from people saying, hey, we have this check. Does this belong to you? That doesn't happen. So I don't know if they're fibbing or what's happening. So I'm going to try to work on that next week. We also cleaned up our out of town compass mailing because a lot of people were on there and were getting it mailed and hadn't paid. So we went from 169 to 19. And I already received 2 emails today, phone calls, I'm sorry, asking how they can get the compass again. So I think they're starting to get the hint. But I want to backtrack a little bit. When we're telling people to pre-register, we're trying to make it not seem like we're zoning in on the money, even though we are a little bit, but we want people to pre-register so that if there's a cancellation or people are showing up when there's been no one registered and we cancel a program and they come and they get upset with us, but they were never registered. I believe in September, the plan is to go back to registering for series. I know we're going to get a lot of pushback about that because people are going to say, I didn't take all the classes. And this happened when I started. And we fought it for a little bit. And after about 3 months, people got used to it. So I think we're back at that point where people have to pay for the entire series because the instructors are getting paid. Other than that, just in the beginning of June, we have already registered 7 new participants, which is great. And that's it.
That sounds great. On this business of paying per series, and I think we talked about that before, Aisha. The fact is, there's no other place that you register for a class that you can pay when you go, or if you're, or you're not there. So I think that would just bring us in with, whether it's the after school classes, the adult ed classes or whatever it is.
All, if you register for the series.
Right, absolutely. So
Well, there are towns that I looked into it and they're since pre-COVID and post-COVID, and there are some towns that you pay $3 to $5 per class. And they compare it to that, but I also think $5 a class for a fitness class is not a lot, even if a yoga class can be $60 per day. So it's just going to be a little bit more retraining. And the other thing that I wanted to know is our continental breakfast that the Friends support has been we usually break even, and it's doing phenomenally well, bringing in money to cover cost for the food and the supplies. People have sort of stepped up. I think it has a lot to do with Jamie because he spoils them rotten, and Tom. But yeah, we have more money than we've ever had before in the kitty to pay for continental breakfast. So, which is good because Loving Spoonfuls food has gone down.
So I'm here with my semi-annual complaint. When are we gonna accept credit cards for payment?
I have an update about that, so I reached out to the treasurer's office to have a meeting about it, and right now they told me that to hold off because they're going through a software change. And soon as that takes place, they'll be glad to meet with me, so I just gotta follow up again.
Ian?
You know, I just want to say something about the payment of classes. I'm in a couple of the classes. It isn't that they don't want to pay, it's, do you pay the day you go? Do you pay ahead of time? I think it'll be easier if you just pay for the whole thing,
Right.
instead of,
Well, that's very true, Anne, but some people, like some class, Sandy's yoga right now has at sometimes 100 people in it. And she has about 24 registered. And she's one of the most that have people pay. She, in the past, when we got up and running, we could offer a class with 3 people in it because Sandy's yoga was covering the instructors pay for that, and that's not happening anymore. And so that's why we're starting to be a little like COVID's over. Let's get back to, I don't want to get away from Zoom because she couldn't fit 100 people in a room. And we have people that are from Needham that have second and third homes all over the country that are still taking classes because it's on Zoom. And I think that's wonderful. And we're also maxed out of space. So even if we brought Sandy in to have her be in person, she could do 20 people versus 100, and it would conflict with something else. Like we're shuffling rooms right now again because we're back to capacity, which is a good thing.
true.
So I have a question, and it's a question my wife asks me every month when she's giving me the check for Sandy's class. Can they pay for more than a month at a time?
For Sandy's?
Yeah, that would be an example.
Yeah, of course. And starting in September, we're going to be having, I've tried to explain to some people because some people, married couples, pay with 2 checks. And I'm always saying, you don't have to pay with 2 checks. We can split it up. You can pay for, like the series will be the time that's in the compass. So starting September, October, those would be the months that you could pay for.
Good.
But you can do that now if you want.
Okay, anything else, Aisha?
I do think that maybe, Colleen, we should rave a little bit about the gift shop.
Yes, well, we've got 2 members of the friends here, so we'll let
Okay.
them. Gift shop.
Awesome. I was
Okay.
very impressed. So that's it for me then.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Aisha? From anybody? No. Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Jess? Anything, would you like to?
Mine's always less exciting. Put
Should I
me
you first
before
so
the,
that-
yeah, put me before the fun stuff. We're good. Our numbers were up this month. We're busy. Our new social worker is starting June 12th. Isabel Dick, we're so excited to have her. start. I did, I don't know if anyone saw me on Needham Cable. I did, we just did a special on isolation among older adults, so that's live now. So it was a good opportunity to just also give a plug for the wonderful programming that we have here at the senior center, and in addition to the social services support as well. So any opportunity we get to do that kind of outreach, we try and take. We're still offering counseling. We're still kind of have a steady wait list. We feel like it's manageable, and we're offering people referrals to Interface as well and trying to use that more. It seems like that service has been just anecdotally a little more successful in finding people, clinicians in the community, if they can't wait for us or they need something more long-term. We're really trying to stick to the 8-week model, just to free up our team. We renewed our SNAP grant for FY24. That all went through. So we'll continue to be a SNAP intake site for another year, so food stamps. So it was exciting to get that done. Our taxi program, we have that grant from Mass Development. We're offering taxi rides within an 8-mile radius purposely to cover Boston appointments, which is the kind of the big gap for transportation in the community right now. That's going great. We're not getting the huge influx of referrals that we got when we did this grant last time around during COVID, which is good. That means the money will last longer, but we're glad to have that program. I'm in the process of applying for another grant right now to we're just going to try and keep it going as long as we can. Obviously, taxis are very expensive, so, but because we're not getting flooded with referrals, the money's, we're holding our own. Other things, we finished a big survey on the library. We have a new wonderful volunteer who also works with the Needham Public Library. So we were able to look at that data together, take a look at kind of what people want in books, how long they're taking out books. And she's doing shopping for us at the Needham Library book sales to try and kind of tailor our library to what consumers are asking for. And she's also reorganizing it to try and just make it more accessible based on the feedback that we got. So that's really exciting. And the only other thing, I'm participating in a survey or an interview with the state, looking into prescription medication misuse among older adults. So that's starting next week. It should be interesting. That's it.
Do we, how do we, for lack of a better word, advertise the taxi program?
Yes, it's gone in highlights, it's gone in the
Okay.
newsletter, it's gone on social media. There was a little confusion in the beginning. There was a misprint that said a 20-mile radius, and we quickly corrected it
Yeah.
everywhere because that would run us out of money really quick.
Right.
So at first we weren't sure if people were like counting themselves out because of the distance change, but we've been really trying to make it clear that 8 miles does cover the Boston hospitals. And we are just focusing it on medical appointments this time around. When we did it last time, it was during the vaccination kind of rush, so we were taking people to Gillette and farther distances. So we're also thinking maybe that's part of the reason it's slower.
Just how much is the average taxi ride?
To Boston, it could be at least $80, if not more. Yeah,
Look, I'm trying to figure how many rides for the 50,000. It's 50,000, right?
yeah,
So
I forget, I
that's why
have I forget, in the grant, we kind of did an estimate of how many rides
Okay, yeah.
it would do us. It wasn't that much. We're really trying to, when people call and ask for rides, that there's any other service that can do it, we try and push them to that service. We don't want to be overlapping with like the community council, we want to supplement what they're offering.
Thanks.
Sure.
About 315 round trips, Dan.
Huh?
About 350
Yeah.
round
Is
trips.
that
Right.
it?
Well, in some cases, they're all going into Boston.
Yeah.
Jeff originally said, well, we'll go through it pretty quickly, but. You think 50,000, not a bad grant, but then when you put it that way, you
Yeah.
can see how you can use it up pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that has slowed it down is the taxi company that we're predominantly working with has had some issues with their vehicles. So there's been a few times that they haven't been able to offer the ride because their vehicle has been down or they've been down a driver. So kind of just like everywhere, the hiring market is tough.
Right.
Watch after this meeting, you'll get all those calls.
It's okay, the other grant's almost written, so we'll keep it going.
I'll remember that when I have to go into Mass Eye.
Yeah, it's a great option, so,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. no problem.
Latanya, anything that you'd like to
So,
add?
yes, so, we had our first event Saturday, last Saturday here, for Pride Month, and it was partnered up with Northfield, and Speak Out Boston. We had 40 participants to attend. I forget which select board members came in and left. I want to say it was Kevin, but I'm not for sure. So that was exciting, and there'll be more collaboration. The fitness room was also open that Saturday. Did you attend, Dan?
No, I
Did you?
didn't, I was away.
Okay.
But I know that Lisa and Stephen were both here.
Okay.
And then we talked about it Monday, about opening the gym on weekends, and the feeling, I think, was they felt, and I sort of agree with them, might work more in the fall and winter than in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
So the event was well attended, and I also attended the MCO outreach meeting and the regional meeting for this month, and those will be happening every month. Every month they talk about a topic for the directors to kind of zoom in and provide feedback, and one of them was, fundraising, board meetings, and also retaining volunteers. So that's exciting, and I will be continuing those. The DEI book club is going good, and the consensus is to continue it, but maybe take a break after this 8 weeks. It's an 8-week book club, and kind of branched out to showing a movie to support the book we're reading. And then starting in July, we'll be hosting, I want to call them it's going to be called Dinner Bells, but they're community dinners. And it allows participants and community residents to come to the senior center and have dinner once a month from 5 to 7. And I'm hoping it brings in, younger people and just families, so they can see the center and enjoy a nice hot meal.
Great. Any questions? Thank you. I'm gonna just run through the thing and then,
Yeah.
so that we can spend as much time.
Sure.
So let's do the minutes. Did everybody get a copy of the minutes? Great, okay. Are there any additions? Or changes? I don't hear anything. Okay, may I have a motion to approve? Thank you. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I don't really have anything. Dan, you went to the planning board meeting
did.
and I see that it was approved.
Yeah, so a couple interesting things. So it was approved, I think, my recollection, this is the Wingate adding the 3rd floor. I think when we went to the last meeting, the parking spaces was 61, and they're now 71. The state requirement is 39, believe it or not. And so 71 would be one per apartment. I happen to do, only because I'm curious of the building they're putting up next to the Congregational Church, which is a housing development, and
right.
it's specifically in their agreement with the town that you can only have one car per apartment there. The planning board meeting was pretty quick on Wingate.
Well, I think they already knew that everything was set
Yeah.
and it was just a vote more than anything else.
Right, so I think it's encouraging, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Mostly I noticed, I don't know if people have gotten the Needham
I was
Observer.
just gonna
yeah, just
mention
gonna say
it,
that.
It's
so
a
there's
new
a.
online, and it had a fairly extensive thing on Wingate today.
Yeah.
Right, and it's been really,
This is the second one, it's been pretty
actually, it's
informative.
a third,
Oh, is it the third?
yeah,
Okay,
it's a third. I'm only saying that because I happen to be under board,
okay.
but, no, it's really been, great, I think, you know.
It's hard to disseminate news in the online, although I think Hometown Weekly has done a nice job with the senior center.
Yes, yeah, they have. Yeah, but this is, it's a good group of people that are working on this and trying to, at our, we had a board meeting the other day, as a matter of fact, and what they're talking about is doing sort of like a tic-tac-toe, you know, where there's 9 sections. And they're plugging in different things, where they're gonna start like with, they've had a request to cover Needham sports, so that will come in the fall and, you know, different variations, you know, obviously political, you know, things that are going on through the town, so, so far, I think they've done a great
I do
job
too.
in covering things, and they've only made one mistake. They called a certain, they did a thing on, Needham wildlife or, you know, birds, and they called one bird for the wrong name, so they had a retraction on that one. So it's really great if, anybody
I love
wants
that.
the, right, yeah, if anybody wants to be able to get it, it comes online, it comes through the email, so, we can send that out. It might be a good thing to try and put, for the seniors, to try and put it in, one of the daily, maybe a couple times.
Yeah, that's, yeah, and I should say it would be good
Right.
publicity for it.
Yeah,
Does that come out once a week?
Yes, every Thursday.
Every Thursday? Oh, good.
Needham
Needham
Observer.
Observer.
Just giving it a little. plug.
No, it's a good idea.
Yeah. And right now it's free. And they, at the end of the, you know, the reading all your news, there's a little thing at the bottom that says donate. So, you know, they are getting donations. Some of them are small, some of them are whatever, but, it's some of the things that you don't think about when you're doing something like this, and it's free. But they have to get insurance, liability insurance for everybody that's working on it, so. Yeah, they have, yeah, so that's a cost, but anyway. Let's get back to our stuff. Ted, you want to give us a,
Sure. I got a few topics, typically, as a beginning, our Veterans Coffee Talk that's advertised in the Compass. I signed up for that one for both sessions, and kind of disappointing, when I did come in here for the session, I was scanning the screen, but I didn't see it on there. Then I noticed that next to the screen was a 8.5 by 11 plastic sign, said it was canceled because of lack of registration. Hopefully, maybe the one in June 28th turns out to be better. I noticed that also in the new booklet for July and August, it's listed in there as ongoing, so once a month at least, but kind of disappointing that it was canceled. Especially from the standpoint that when I looked at the July booklet, I see on the front page, if anybody looked at it in advance, is quite a group of veterans there pictured. So when I look and I see that many there, at least those that are at the center, makes me wonder how come response and registration was so low. I know in one particular case, and I guess it's okay to mention a name because the fellow is pictured, Bob Quinn, comes here an awful lot to the senior center. He happened to be at the Memorial Day event. After the parade, he was at the senior center for the collation. And I was sitting there mentioning it to him. I said, "Oh, will we see you?"
the veterans, basically, yeah, they were at the senior center, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so what I say, senior center?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So I mentioned it to him that, you know, it was gonna be, the talk was gonna be the coffee talk, and he looked surprised, he knew nothing about it. So again, I don't know how the information gets disseminated, but somehow that was missed there amongst the different people.
Yeah,
Along the same lines, while I'm at it, I noticed in this picture, there's quite a few guys. I noticed that this is also, looks like it says a Memorial Day event at the center. So I guess maybe these guys were here in the morning and it's almost like they were told that they were gonna take a picture. Because they're, I see Tom Gallant is in his brown uniform. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have been in the picture. But I was at all the events that were taking place on Memorial Day in the town. But I noticed Tom is wearing his brown uniform there. I would have been here but wearing my Vietnam era dress greens to add a little different color to it. But maybe something like that may be a thing for Veterans Day event during that time period of the month, seeing as how.
I'll mention it to program.
Wednesday, that was Wednesday, Memorial Day. Good turnout all over in the town, a lot of participation, a lot of representation there at Memorial Park. And at the end of that, nice collation at the VFW as well, with a lot of people, all the tables were full, good event, good participation. Yeah. June 1st, 2023, we had our general membership meeting, which we have every first Thursday of the month. We had it was our annual past commanders dinner. They read all the past commanders, the names of all of them from all the way 1932 when the post was started in Needham. But at the same time, it's also the annual election or installation of the new officers for the new 2023-2024 year. But at the same time, I'd like to mention that one of our COA members happened to be at the VFW, was asked to be there as a guest, Kate Roby. She was asked to be there and she received a VFW certificate of appreciation from the VFW for all of her volunteering work.
Kate does a lot, right, yeah.
She was there and she decorates the hall. As a matter of fact, the hall was decorated for that
And I
event as
think
well.
I know she's still doing it, but on Memorial Day, she was.
She
the one
puts
that
up
put all the
flags.
Flags, all
Yes.
the whole length of the stone
Yes,
wall.
as a matter of fact, a few years ago, it made the news in the paper. She
Right.
put them up, but they get burned by somebody, but they
That,
never.
no,
caught
that
them.
was that group was the Exchange Club.
Oh, was it?
She did a lot of wear, she did a lot of them, but the ones that are along the wall there, she does.
Yeah, no, she puts up a lot of flags and she does a lot of the decoration for specific events
Right,
at the
yeah.
VFW post.
Yeah.
Which was a good too. The other one that I've just mentioned quickly is July 4th is coming up. And obviously Needham has the parade. The VFW does participate in that. I remember a few years ago, I think it might have been the year 2021, because last year was 2022. 2021, we happened to have, I believe it might have been a senior center van.
We did,
And we were on that van. The windows only opened up from the
Exactly,
top down.
that was a last minute,
well, yeah.
at least we got a van.
The intent was good,
Right,
participation was good,
right,
but we were on the van and there was nothing outside the van that indicated that it was VFW and all that. People thought we were decrepit old people from the nursing home on
yeah.
the van, but
And
so.
I will apologize as
So-
an Exchange Club member, I'll apologize for that. They somehow, there was a sign, it never got put on the van.
Yeah.
And we got the van at the last minute, so there would be one, and it was a faux pas that hopefully will not happen again.
Well, it last year, that didn't happen. There was a fellow in the town, I forget the name of the fellow, he's got some kind of a business that he has along a low bed truck. So last year, he volunteered the truck, his time and effort. They put chairs on the truck and certain group was out there marching. My marching days are over, but we were on the van. I can always sit on the chair. That's
Right.
easy enough.
Right,
So a group of us was on the van, and he volunteered his efforts again for this year.
great,
So this year again, we will be, hopefully weather turns out to be good. We'll be on that truck again.
You're gonna be on
with
the
us.
chair waving?
Well, I'll be on the chair waving. We should have the banner, we'll have the flags and everything. So at least representation is shown in the town that there is a veterans an active veterans organization.
Absolutely.
Because the coverage in the newspaper, the way it used to be, is nowhere near what it is now. Used to be a lot better with the Needham Times as opposed to the Hometown Weekly.
Well, the Needham Observer did a great job covering the Memorial Day.
The Observer?
Yeah,
The online.
the online
online?
that I just talked about,
Oh,
that
yeah, oh,
online
okay.
newspaper, that, yeah.
I guess I'll have to check that one out.
And then also the veterans put up the flags in the cemetery.
They do, yeah. As a matter of fact, in particular, this year, things turned out different. Nobody could explain the rationale. But we got there on the, I think it was a Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, to do the Needham Town Cemetery. And we were there. I was the only VFW member. My neighbor was there. Ironically, when they took the picture with the Boy Scouts in it, I was in the picture in the newspaper, but nevertheless, we all got there, everybody got there, all the flags were gone, all the existing flags were gone. Somebody took them all out. Took everything out, which was great because the Boy Scouts just grabbed the flags and went all over, put them up.
Yeah,
So that was the first time that kind of a gesture was done. Somebody must have told somebody maybe within the town or whatever, but exactly what happened to the flags after that, that's the big $64,000 question. They could have wound up in a dumpster or something
Yeah.
maybe, but anyway, obviously that took place at the Needham Cemetery. At St. Mary's, the flags were still there because that's not a town cemetery,
Right.
so we took out them. So bottom line, about 2,000 flags taken out and put in, so.
great.
But yeah, so basically that's about it, what I got.
Okay, thank you. Dan, now that we put the or Carol, either one. Friends,
Well,
at least about the good stuff. I'm sorry, I didn't.
yeah, it's like, no, that's okay. I didn't know what was coming up with the gift shop. You just want to know how well. it's-
Well, we've really been, yeah, I mean, I should mention it because you've really been doing very
Yeah,
well with the
the
gift shop.
It's been, May, who runs it, is just, doing a great job, and she's finding lots of interesting things. Putting lots of interesting things in there, so it's bringing in a lot of money for the fans.
Do you find it does better when you put stuff on tables outside?
Yeah,
I do.
They also did a half price sale, which is
Yeah.
really, yeah,
yeah, that helped a lot when we, that was part of our income this past month. We did have. Well, we still get donations, but they're down right now, so I guess people just, everything's tough out there right now for people's incomes.
but you do have a couple of events, summer events coming up.
We do, we have, that's true, thank you for reminding me, we've got,
Why go?
we're going to do a, ice cream social again on, it's gonna be August 2nd, I believe it is, during the week, so if they're around. That was a big hit last year. At ice cream Sundays, anybody who came and lined up on the table. Put all the toppings and so forth, and several kinds of ice cream, several kinds of sauces and so forth, and then do the same thing again. And that's something great. Oh, and then September 8th, we also will have our annual strawberry shortcake social. And business meeting. And friends business meeting. At the senior center here. So. And that's all we have planned, I think, right now. Stay tuned. Yeah, we will not have any more board meetings this summer, so our first board meeting will be during the day of the strawberry social.
Okay, thank you. I just want to do one business thing before we turn it over to Tim. This is our last meeting for the summer, and we usually have a 3-person committee, including myself. I think Penny said that she was going to be around, and all right. Great, thank you. We've never met.
Right, exactly.
But you just never know what might come up, so. Thank you. Okay. Finally, Tim.
Hi. So I hope folks had a chance to take a look at what Annie sent out. It was the final report, which was very long. From the space study that we did here at the Center of the Heights. We proposed this for two reasons, and it was funded by an earmark that Denise Garlick put in the state budget for us. Primarily the fact that CAF is a decade old. And there are some things that were initially assumptions that, things would work this way, and it turns out that more people preferred it that way. Some programs were, not anticipated to be quite as popular as they are. The fitness room is probably the best example. It's very popular, very well subscribed, and a little bit squishy. So it could use some extra room. This is separate and apart, and there are some, frustrating things, but this is separate and apart from the routine maintenance. I think I always like looking at the shades because after what appeared to be 50 years, they were finally restored. Right now, we're in the midst of a very challenging multi-year repair on the handicap accessible front door, which is hopefully going to be done some point late summer, early fall. So this is separate and apart from kind of those relatively routine maintenance issues. This is, did we configure the building right? Did we provide enough space for this function or that function? The result of it was that really long report that you saw. It included time spent with this group, the COA board and members of the Friends. Also some focus groups with patrons of the Center at the Heights who come here for programs and services. We broke down in part sort of due to what I understand of town finances into a number of sort of small projects that could be taken up if the town finds, $500,000 here, $1 million there. Which the town does from time to time. There's a lot of money that is going to be committed to the Mitchell and the Pollard. It's going to take up sort of all of the town's capital for the next, basically, in the DPW facility for the next 10 years at least. But the town still does occasionally find high 6-figure, low 7-figure pots of money. We put together a list of alternatives. Some of them could be put together at the same time. Some of them can be done completely separately. I haven't met with the town manager about it yet. The library is a little bit behind us, but is also going through a similar space study. The results of their space study were sort of presented in a way that they needed $16 million to do it. And so the town sort of sent them back and be like, come up with a list like CAF did of, a project you could do for $1 million and another project you could do for $500,000. What I wanted to hear from all of you is what your thoughts on the report were, what you think is a priority or not, and then sort of how much of a priority is it? Because just because I'm a nice guy, I don't think the town manager and the select board and the town meeting are going to give me a couple $1 million. They will, however, respond if we can clearly articulate a need for serving the senior population. And the people who would do a lot of that articulating are in this room. So if there is a push to expand the fitness room, to renovate the kitchen, to refurbish the deck, add new furniture, and put in some shade structures, I will be very involved, but it will be, the folks in this room that will be having to do some of the advocating.
So I read a lot of the report. And I'll go through, I made some notes.
Sure.
So the survey was done July, August, September, which was a tough time to measure the fitness room.
Yes.
The fitness room is really dry. I'll give you an example. At 9:30 this morning, there were 13 people in the fitness room. That's a lot of people. So I think the fitness room swap, which I think was $140,000 or something, I think that should be the top priority of anything. There were a number of other things that so the kitchen issues, I really don't understand that well and don't really comment, but there was something about the Beth Israel luncheon program, which I'm not quite familiar with.
Traveling meals.
Huh?
Traveling meals. So the hospital is no longer gonna do that.
Yeah,
And they're looking for a place to do it. We are not a commercial gym,
okay,
so it's not something.
yeah, so I read
It's an
all,
important, it's a very important.
so I read all that. Part about the kitchen, but feel I'm not qualified to comment on it, so I'm
Sure.
not going to. I disagree a little bit with, so I'm not, Jamie, thinking that all the food needs to be in the cafeteria. But I don't think you should have food all over the place here. I think it should be in pretty confined areas.
Sure.
The computer room conversion, which was mentioned in there, and clearly the computer room is underutilized.
Mhm.
It's utilized quite a bit by Shine during the 6 weeks of open enrollment. So if we could preserve a space for 4 or 5 computers, because 4 or 5 of us at a time meet with during open enrollment, so, but I totally agree that space is not used. I'm gonna come out for the staff. The staff should not park off-site. They're not gonna wanna take a shuttle. My idea was if we could get just the first row of the parking by the MBTA and let the staff park there. That would free up 8 or 9 spaces.
That's being worked on, I believe.
So separate and apart from convincing the town manager and town meeting to give us a lot of money, we are going forward with that. It's going forward with negotiating with the state agency, so. I can't tell you exactly the pace, but it's somewhere around glacial. But the plan would be to get the first row that's along Hillside Ave.
Right.
Right.
To do some restriping in the back to create more handicap accessible spots in part. We are gonna lose 2 or 3 spots in the back with the emergency generator, which will thankfully be off the sidewalk. Which is a good thing. But yeah, we're looking to add 12 or 13 spaces over there, depending on how the striping goes and how many handicap spots we add. So that's good, although. We'd still love to get people to carpool in there.
Question on the emergency generator. Does it have to, can it be on the side rather than in the back here? Was there a
Not
reason?
really. So the wiring for the building
Of course, yeah,
is back there.
yeah,
And what they're gonna do to make it so that we don't have the hazards we have now is they're gonna rip up the parking lot and run wire underneath in a trench.
oh, okay, yeah,
Under the parking lot, under the sidewalk coming up. So it sort of has to be in the back here. We figured if we could put it at the side there, it'd be better than right in the middle of the back.
right,
But
yeah, okay,
yeah,
I just have 2 other little things.
Yeah.
The front lawn, which they talked about, I think that's probably the bottom item, I'm not sure. And they mentioned in the report, they're afraid of losing patrons to Newton. That Newton Center is too far away, and talking to the people from Newton today at the Shine meeting, they had so discussed, they haven't even knocked down the old building yet to build the new one. I will tell you that Needham people are going to Natick to play pickleball. at the Natick. So, you're always gonna get some of that, but I don't think you're gonna lose patrons. Yeah.
And they ask why we can't have pickleball.
Right.
well,
Yeah.
if you read the Needham Observer, they're going to be trying to put one out at Claxton Field, so that will help.
Yeah.
But
What are they putting up at the cricket fields?
They took some of the tennis courts and
Right.
converted them,
yeah,
and then somebody destroyed them.
Yeah, the coach.
So, thanks, Tim.
Ed,
Okay, so I think Tim gave 3 main points in that report. Actually, in the order, which I think are important. The kitchen, I think is probably the single most important thing. Because we need to deal with the fact that Beth Israel's doesn't want to continue providing the meals for the travel meals program. And so we need a place for that, and that kitchen, if it can be made into a commercial kitchen so that we can do that, I think that's extremely important. We can't lose the travel meals program.
So what's the difference with that and the delivery of the Springwell meals?
So
Well,
Springwell,
Go ahead.
Springwell meals are provided free, or, I mean, the state gives funding to Springwell to provide them free to
Right.
councils on aging. So you as a taxpayer do pay for them, but the town doesn't directly pay for them. They're prepared off-site and frozen and then reheated. The meals from the hospital are prepared fresh day of, you know, the more, like literally, we pack them up and they go immediately after they're finished cooking. It's a 2-meal packet, so it's a hot supper type lunch with, you know, entree and sides, and a cold lunch like dinner, so sandwich, piece of fruit, milk. And it's something the health department has done with the hospital going back to when the hospital was part of the town.
Who funds that?
So it's a mix. There are a number of Springwell clients that are on there because they are homebound or disabled. There's a number of clients who do not have the means to pay and are not qualified for whatever reason through Springwell, and the Friends Board for Traveling Meals raises money and covers those costs. And the number of people that are in that category fluctuate, but it's usually around 10 to 20% of the total clients are the ones that need sort of scholarships.
And it's a bigger program than what we have.
Not anymore, I don't think.
Really? I thought it.
About 50.
35 at the most.
Oh, wow.
Well,
to have 75.
I know, I know, yeah.
this year Rebecca's been between 45 and 48.
So it's something that with the right facility, we could
Exactly.
handle, yeah.
And so, they looked at the Tim and other people have looked at, like maybe the high school could do it, but that doesn't work. And the hospital, I think what they do give us 2-year like a little window.
So the town manager pushed them, and there's an agreement, a pilot agreement, which is payment in lieu of taxes. And she worked it into the hospital's new pilot agreement that the hospital is going to sign with the town, that they will give us 2 years' notice in writing before they actually kick us out. I think that still means we have to have a long-term plan for traveling meals viability, but long-term is 3 or 4 years. You know, I think they wanted, the kitchen manager was a very lovely person, has supported the program, but is got a lot of demands from the fact that the hospital's expanding. I think thought, you know, if they gave us 6 weeks notice, we could find someone else, but it turns out there aren't a lot of places that want to provide meals at a reduced cost for seniors on short notice. We did go out for bid competitively. The town went out and said, businesses, institutions, what would you cost to do this for us? And often you'll get someone who comes in with a very high price you can't afford, but they'll respond. No one responded. No one was interested. It's tough. It also is partly the reason the hospital is kind of an ideal one is you're talking about by and large, because Needham doesn't have an age restriction or an income restriction, but by and large, the population is older. It has, you know, physical challenges or limitations because they're homebound or disabled. You're talking about often low sodium, you're talking about diabetic, you're talking about non-solid food diets. So you're talking about, you know, you can't go to the ground round and have them prepare those meals for you. You really have to have a hospital or a long-term care facility like a North Hill or something that has a population like that they are caring for.
So, I mean, I think that's the number one. Then I think the number 2 is to deal with the exercise room. I think that's relatively speaking easy to do. You know, everything's relative, but I think that should be the second one. And then the next big thing would be to do something with the deck up here.
Yeah.
And then the other things I think should be, you know, dealt with one at a time. They're all little projects that dealt with.
One of the things that, you know, I think the fitness room is it makes a lot of sense. There's a bigger space next to it. Where the game room goes, I think, is a question. One of the hopes is that we can eventually get more space by renovating the basement. You know, we talked to people, could the fitness room go in the basement? And people around this table and others were pretty unequivocal in saying, no, not a good idea. We still think that that's, you know, the only way we get more space in the building is by turning the basement into some type of usable space. So we can reconfigure the space we have, to better meet our needs, but if we want more space, the only way is by making the basement into usable
I
space.
agree with you. I agree, I don't wanna be the person who tells the pool
You know,
players
it's-
to go to the
Well,
basement.
actually, in speaking to a couple of the pool players, they weren't opposed to going down into the basement if it was obviously not to make it to look like they're in a hole somewhere, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, the cost estimate they have would be like $600,000 to do that, so it would be nice. Could the pool players go down there? Maybe. Could that be used for cards? You know, casinos don't have windows.
Right,
Our basement wouldn't have windows.
get some pictures.
Ideal for the Friday.
Certainly could be ideal
That's
for the
a
Friday
big-
movie. I think one of the things, Dan, that we're trying to think about is. What are ways we can have flexible space so that, like, right now, the computer lab, like you talked about, is very well used for a very short period of
Right.
time.
Yeah.
If you go to the high school, they've kind of reduced or eliminated computer labs, right? What they do is they have laptops on a cart. And if we're talking about seniors, we probably don't necessarily, we probably want a large monitor, we probably want a separate keyboard. But there's no reason we couldn't have a cart with our technology that we roll out into a room and set up for a 6-week period.
Absolutely, I agree with that totally.
And that's a way to not add more space, but get more space by reusing our space in a better way.
Where do you store the cards?
So we would store in the basement, but there'd be limited storage in the basement.
Right.
So, yeah, that's right.
I had never been in the basement full time, you took me down this week. I was pretty impressed with the space, not necessarily what's in there now.
I was thinking you could make the downstairs, quote, a man cave.
And have the beer and bar set up. Think of the clients you'd have then. Ted, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had one, to follow along with the outside comment, the site plan.
Mhm.
I look at that and I see, you know, even reading in the report, the projections for future attendance here, the percentages were skyrocketing, the number of people. I look at the plan here and I see along Hillside Street, 10 regular and 2 accessible proposed spaces, 1 row. I see that's great as a start. They're all proposed. I don't know if any of that is definite, probably not yet, but I would have thought, based on the way that the MBTA has such a lack of participation in the parking lots, I would have thought that ask for more and let them turn you down. In other words, there's 4 rows there of 10 spaces each. Ask for 2 more rows at 10 spaces each. If they see that you have an interest, they would probably pass it forward. It could always be a situation where the senior center gets it or the town gets it with the concept that, oh, in the next 4 years or something, business is gonna skyrocket in Boston. Everybody's gonna be on a train. We need the spaces back. Then you renegotiate and give them back. But in the meantime, you're only asking for a little bit. And I know from the way things have been going in the town at our VFW, we used to have something like 60 spaces there that the MBTA used to rent. Like about 5 years ago, they dragged their feet because they didn't know if they want to rent them. The cost was years behind. It was never updated. But they turned around, they dragged their feet on renewing the lease. And then they turned around, the board of directors from the VFW met with the Needham Hospital, the Beth Israel Deaconess. They were ecstatic about the fact that space was available. They took all the spaces that we could give them. They're even still asking for more if we've got them. They negotiated for the spaces, they paid for the paving, paid for the new lights. They did all of this. The MBTA lost out. And even when you drive around at the Hershey State, the Junction Station, you'll find at the lower parking lot, there's nobody there, no. The MBTA bus pulls in, it sits there. You get people from that work in town on the landscaping business, and they're there lunchtime. They occupy about 4 spaces because they're having their lunch there, because nobody else is there. So I would think that they turn around, if you ask for it, like the insurance companies do, you know, they ask for high rates but then they get knocked down, and what they get knocked down to is what they wanted initially.
Yep.
So that's what I would have thought would have been asked for. Secondly, I noticed that in the report, it talks about the spaces, but it also talks about the spaces, the new ones, I guess, being allocated and assigned to veterans and octogenarians. So I guess my question would be is, what kind of signage or what do you do to designate that specifically for that sector of people? Number one, number two, how do you enforce that?
I don't know.
I'm opposed to that in that you just gotta use the spaces as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I go along with that.
At this point, I count,
When I see it written in there, that's what makes me ask the question.
Yeah.
Somebody was commenting on it and put it in.
I count cars at Percy. So the maximum we've had since the pandemic is 140. There's probably 300 spaces there because the Hersey lot determines how many people park over here.
Yeah.
Because they want to park at Hersey because it's 15 minutes closer. So if you live inside, people used to come here because Hersey was filled at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Same way with the junction.
Huh? Yeah.
Junction is built at 8.
Yeah.
So, to your point, and I don't think they're coming back. I live right next to the Rosendale Village one, and it's never more than half full, even on rainy days. We did ask for more. They came back and said, we're willing to rent you these 10 from the hours of 11 to 3 p.m. And we came back and said, well, if we're gonna rent them, we need to actually rent them all day.
How would they enforce that too? I mean.
It's a little bit unclear.
Yeah.
I don't think they're reasonable. The town would pay for this. And so I think one of the challenges is if we're renting 10 or 12, we can figure out how to make the money work with what we've got. If we're renting 30, then we need more money. It's not in the budget. How do you get it? You know, there's ways to do it, but it's a lot simpler to try to get this and then to come back for more, I think, than to get more upfront. But that's going to proceed again at a state government pace. That's going to proceed no matter what happens with the rest of the report and capital money and out years and that sort of thing. We're adding the spaces. It's just a question of when the final deal is signed.
Maybe a little push from Denise.
Right.
Yes. So, you know, we've heard from a couple folks. Are there other folks who would like to weigh in? And then are folks on board with the concept, which is essentially that this place is 10 years old. It's a good idea to reassess what works, what doesn't, what could be better.
Yeah.
And then can we make the case to, you know, again, I'm not under any delusion. It might be that they say, we can only find $200,000. We look at the list and go, well, we could have a new roof deck with new furniture, new trellises, new plantings. Great. That, you know, or we can, you know, we could go back and say, can you find 260 and we can swap the fitness in the game room and make them really nice. But in order to get that, what I will need is support from the Council on Aging Board, from the Friends, to say, you know, this is a priority, this is important for Needham seniors. You know, we listen to the patrons who come here, we've surveyed them, we've gathered data, and we need more space in the fitness room, and we need, you know, a deck that people use for more than one day in the fall and one day in the spring, you know, things like that.
Absolutely.
Are you planning to go in with one priority or 3 priorities, or wait for the budget and then figure it out, or?
So, the town manager, the 2 assistant town managers, and the town manager are going to meet with the library director and I when the library study is complete. Because essentially the DPW facility and the 2 schools are basically
Right.
sucking all the oxygen out.
Yeah.
It's really going to be, where do they find little pots of money? And it sounds weird to say they find pots of money, but there's money in the overlay surplus and they think, you know, there's going to be $1 million worth of demand on it, and there's only $200,000 of demand, and they have $800,000 that they weren't planning on. The assistant town manager for finance is very good at his job, and what his job is to be incredibly pessimistic about new revenue, and incredibly pessimistic about how much everything is going to cost so much more than he had plans. You know, and when he does that, that means Needham has money, because things are always, we take in a little bit more revenue than he expected, costs aren't quite as high as he
Right,
projected.
right.
That's why Needham is a really well-run community and, you know, has room to build new buildings, but they will find some amount of money. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a dance of, you know, library wants this, senior center wants that, what can we afford when? So, you know, do we get something in 25, which is, we're about to begin fiscal year 24, so we're not obviously getting anything in
Right,
fiscal
right.
year 24.
Right.
Could we get something in fiscal year 25? I don't know. Capital plans are usually set 5 years in
Yeah.
advance. So the library's not on, and neither is CAF, because we just got the results of the report. But I would love to see, could we get something in 25 and the library gets something in 26 and 27 and we get something in 28? Fiscal
Yeah,
year
I don't
28, so like,
about the library. I don't-
yeah,
It seems to me like we should try to go in with 3 primary targets, and I'm hearing the kitchen, which, you know. Food insecurity is a real issue. I'm hearing exercise, which is just general health. Overall, what's the third? I saw the vestibule, the rooftop, and then I also think about the office space and the one-to-one counseling, which.
Mhm.
I think is really important.
so I think it's important too.
It's like, well, that, you know,
Yeah, well,
the whole
so,
person.
so I think it is too. I would tell you, I think if we're going to town meeting. It's a lot easier to sell. Better using the space we have by spending some money or adding space. For patrons, unfortunately, than it is to sell, the staff need these things, right?
Well,
And we can do it, I'm just saying that. I think that has to kind of be, we need these things and also this one.
but I
Squeeze it
think
in.
it's,
Can I add something? It's about the meals. You know, there's a lot of people who used to get them, you know, who really love them because they're fresh. Unlike the drink well, which is
Yeah.
not frozen. Okay. I mean, is there a way that, would it help if there were previous patrons who, you know, could talk about that as part of making it a priority?
Sure, absolutely, I think it would, yeah.
I just want to chime in. I don't think it's about the staff space. I think it's about the consumers.
Okay,
And
good
if
point.
you look
Right,
at
it's not the
mental
staff
health
having
in
more office
seniors and
space, it's-
suicide rates among seniors, especially men.
Well, that's an important point. We don't
It's
phrase it
huge.
as the staff need more office space. We need to see more clients at the same time, right? So that's also like,
Big issue.
my phrasing is not the right way to pitch it. But that's a good point.
My opinion.
I think, yeah.
I can see it. I mean, it's a real issue. You know, I think of food, exercise and mental health are in my mind.
And obviously, if you looked at it, you saw that the cost for reconfiguring some spaces for offices is a lot, right? It's a rounding error for the town.
Yeah, yeah, it's nothing.
Anybody else? So how would you like our support? Do you want an overall?
So I think it would be, once we do meet with the town manager and she sort of says, we're talking about a year or two from now, we're talking about 5 years from now.
Right,
I think it is, you know, the folks in this room doing some of the one-on-one interactions with the select board, with the finance committee, with the town manager and saying. You know, I really wish I could have gone in and exercised today, but it was full and, you know, I couldn't afford to wait 3 hours, so I, you know, went home or something, you know, like. It's giving them some of the reminders of, oh, yes, that's why we would want to do something at the senior center, because senior fitness is incredibly important, and right now. There are people who want it but can't get it.
right. But I think the overall thought, other than, you know, a concern for staff space, and we do have concern for staff space, but. We're also here for the elder pop, so, you know, I think what we've talked about in priorities is probably what we would. Push forward.
Sure. Right.
And I know we've increased staff, which also makes a problem, but I know that some of the staff is part-time, and I don't know whether, you know, reconfiguring some of the part-time hours is a way to
Sure, okay.
handle that or not. I don't know. I mean, I think that's up to the staff, and if you have a conversation with the staff about what we're doing here, then we can go from there, but, you know, obviously, and the kitchen is important at this point, almost only because of traveling meals.
Yep.
You know, it'd be great, I think, getting rid of that center thing that takes up 10% or 50% of the room.
Yeah, the others, yeah.
Would give us a lot more, you know, functionality in there. So I think the kitchen is really up there, but short term, you know, what we talk about the fitness and the kitchen is going to be something that's going to be a lot more money than switching a couple of rooms.
Sure.
If that's what we decide to do, so, but I think what we've spoken about is definitely the overall feeling of prioritizing this.
Sure.
I think the report basically echoed things that this board has been saying for the last 5 years, basically.
Well, hopefully.
Except for the
Hopefully it
kitchen
wasn't
where we
working.
didn't know the issue there. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's an affirmation of what we've been advocating for.
I
Well,
think
the
the,
kitchen will get 2 years' notice, is that correct?
Before traveling meals, before we get kicked out of the hospital.
Yeah.
So-
I think, yeah, that is something that could radically change priority.
Yeah.
If the hospital gives the town a drop dead date, says,
Right.
after this date, we're not doing it, no matter what you do,
That's.
then
Well, I think that
24
should put
thing or
an
25
obligation
thing.
on the town. To do something.
Yes,
It should.
I think the hospital too would
Right,
maybe need to make a contribution.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, the hospital is not, you
You know,
know,
they're,
poor by any means. I mean, they do fundraising and they are, you know, unbelievable. in
You
their-
also
in
have
their
to
fund.
you have to also watch their financial reporting,
Well,
because they make it look like, oh, we broke even, yeah.
the other thing I think I'd mention is if we do go to the town and say we have an ask. If there's the ability to work with the Friends, to fundraise or to make a donation, you know, oh. We're gonna, you know, we're gonna swap the fitness room and the game room, but the Friends are springing for 3 new pieces of strength training equipment, or we're doing the roof deck and the town's paying for this, this and this, but the Friends are gonna. Make it so the couches are extra nice, you know, not by bargain couches, but really nice couches, or I don't know exactly what, but.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
one way to
and
help too.
again, on each of those items, like for instance, the roof deck, there are priorities.
Yep.
As to what needs to be done, and one of them, of course, you know, is some kind of pergola or shading up there, so it can be used more than.
Yep.
It is, I mean, that is our outside space and we don't wanna lose it, so.
Absolutely.
Friends.
No, I like, I mean, I go out on the deck and I like it, I guess I'm not out there on a really bad days when people think about it, but. I do agree that the fitness room, that I was in a class there, we have a class in there and there were 17 people in there trying to do. Everything around all the equipment, so we really do need a lot more space in there, and it would be great to move it over.
so I don't disagree with your idea about. The pool room, the game room
Thank you.
going downstairs, but in the interim. Could we just swap the rooms, because the pool room. The game room relocation is not a big deal, the big deal, I think, is moving. The equipment and changing the floor in the,
And the additional electrical you'd need
Yeah.
in the, right,
so. We could have a long-term goal of moving the game room downstairs, but a short-term goal of
Of
just
just
swap it.
switching the 2 rooms.
right, absolutely. And, you know, we can make the game room. That's nice down there and maybe have a, yeah, a 5-year goal of a bigger space that's even nicer in the basement or something, right?
Friends was giving, we were given a donation, it's 2 years now almost, but. Of $5,000 for the earmark for the kitchen, and we get to do that, so that is one thing that we can offer. For
Right. And if we do the kitchen, maybe, yeah, Friends buys, you know, 100 sets of new. Dishes and silverware or something, or, you know, I don't know what they're.
I sort of thought it was more bits construction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Money to buy the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, although I would,
Yes.
So you asked a good question. Could the Friends of the Traveling Meals help? I think the answer is yes. I gotta be honest, if we do have a professional kitchen here, a commercial kitchen. I will be looking to do a couple different things, and one is to either have a revolving fund or an enterprise fund for nutrition essentially. So I'll be looking for the town to provide some funding for part-time food service staff. But I will be looking for a revolving fund, which would take in money for the cost of meals and pay for groceries. They're expensive and getting more expensive every day, it seems. So what I would hope for is not necessarily that the Friends of the Traveling Meals would contribute money to the cost of building it, but would make a significant donation to the revolving fund, so we would have a balance, so we could survive for the first year and a half and then start building the balance up.
You need to
as
start
we-
planting that seed.
But again, we're 18 months, 24
But
months,
that's,
36 months.
start planting the seed, they go, like you said, glacial pace.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
I just think it's important to know too that like Rebecca and our team work very closely together. And when there's been moments where, you know, new clients have to come on and there's been capacity issues, the senior center has been able to jump in and get those people meals the next day. So, you know, the Springwell program is still here and a great option. You know, it's a different program. It has a very different purpose than traveling meals, but that's a good safety net as well. You know, if meals need to get out right away, you know, we have that relationship with Springwell. We can serve those clients until a long-term solution is.
What would that do to the Springwell lunch, if we redid everything?
So this is where this is where we're making some assumptions, but we would push essentially to receive the equivalent amount of funding to prepare the meals here. So instead of getting the Springwell meals, we would say to the executive officer, Elder Affairs, instead of giving the $25,000 or $50,000 you give to Springwell for Needham's meals, can you give that to us? We're going to use that to prepare fresh meals on site. So that would involve a lot of negotiating. Getting a commercial kitchen would be a big negotiation. Setting it up to run successfully and in a balanced way that doesn't, you know, cost the town hundreds of thousands of dollars a year would be important. You know, when you talk to Danielle, the director of food services for the entire nutrition services for the entire school system, they do an incredible job preparing meals. And if you have good staff and you can have purchasing agreements in place, you can provide very good nutritious meals at a decent price and not have to charge people. Latanya and I did a fair amount of research talking to other senior centers, and they have different ways of funding their food service. So Andover, essentially, their senior center provides meals, but it also caters essentially every town function that needs lunch or dinner. And they do bake sales and cookie sales around the holidays. And with the extra money they make on those things, they basically are able to keep the cost of meals low. You know, Franklin actually attracts a ton of people from like the town, like the DPW guys go in to get their meals there. So different centers have found different ways to make the money work. But we would have to come up with our own way.
Okay, anything else?
Thanks, yeah, be interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Okay, is there any old business? Anything new? Other than old already? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I hope everybody has a great summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking.